Hi, I am here today again with Dave Van de Walle, and we've done a couple of different podcasts together. I think two on yours, two on one, or two on mine. I'm not sure.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, how are you this morning? This
I
afternoon, I guess.
I am I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm great. It's 63 degrees here in suburban Chicago and
It
it's
is
sunny.
58 here in the Twin Cities, and we are going to have, apparently we're going to have summer will happen this weekend. So,
Okay.
and then we'll just be in it forever. And I'm hoping by June 1st I can put my shovel away. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, this has been a heck of a spring. It's been really cold and it's raining right now. So I look like, a dog that's been outside. But other
Oh,
than
come
that,
on.
yeah. Um, so let's see. We had a couple of things to talk about today, which was, first of all, I don't know which one should go first, but I think the whole Stephen Colbert thing was pretty funny in a not so funny way.
Um
And
yeah, that it's interesting you choose those words because I caught up with some friends on Zoom earlier today who were all lamenting the death of the program. And I had to admit, I honestly have never watched it. The only way I'm familiar with Colbert's work is seeing clips,
yeah,
and none of those clips seem to be all that funny. So, um,
did they watch it?
well, that's the thing is I'm realizing how many choose my words somewhat carefully. How many left wing acolytes um, watch watched religiously and are taking the loss of the program. And again, we've had what 7 months warning that they were gonna
Oh no,
jettison
no, it
this
goes
thing.
in and out one or the other because I don't watch it. I
Yeah.
I watched. I used to watch the Tonight Show. When Johnny Carson was on, we watched every night. I loved that show. It was funny. It was silly. It was non-political. And that's before we got divisive, right? And then Jay Leno took over, and I didn't think it was as good, but I liked it. I liked it enough to end my day there. And then when Jimmy Fallon took it over, I watched for a while, and then when he messed up Trump's hair back during the first campaign, and he got so much crap for that, it's like it stopped being fun then, because then he had to dunk on him. And I didn't want to see that. And not because I love Trump. I mean, he deserves dunking, don't get me wrong, but I just don't want to I don't want to hear that at the end of the day.
And I that was one of the things. So I posted on my blog today, kind of a requiem, so to speak, for the Colbert program. And one of the things that that jumped out at me was just how not necessarily um, divisive it was. And we know that it was that we as society are pretty divided, right? So you'll find your tribes if you go looking for your tribes. But I think that Colbert was he was a loyal Democratic foot soldier till the end, and the narrative was the thing that drove his show more than anything. And what's sad is, I know you're familiar with the Jordan phrase, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hmm.
But that to me was, and I think we crossed that Rubicon toward the at the tail end of Letterman's run on the Late Show.
And to be fair, I was not a fan of Letterman either. I can remember watching him in the 80s because that's what everybody my age was doing, and he was cool and out there, and he wasn't Johnny Carson. and edgy and all of that. And I remember watching him thinking back then, this is not, I don't think this is funny. It seemed mean spirited even back then to me. And so,
Well, once he went political, once Letterman really went political, it was pretty obvious that he lost the edge that he had way before that, because part of it was the irony of it all. I mean, why is this stuff funny? And once he delved into politics, it was palpable. It was noticeable. We could realize that, oh my gosh, this guy is really going out of his way to alienate half of the population. And I think that's what Colbert took the torch and ran with it. He was like, okay, I don't care about alienating half of the population, because
Colbert was a writer before that. Wasn't he the comedy writer, or am I wrong there?
I think he had done some writing and some improv, and then got his start on the Daily Show as a caricature of a reporter.
Oh, that's right, the Colbert Report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I actually kind of enjoyed that. I didn't mind that one so much.
Well, he was. What's interesting about it, to me, what's interesting about it is that he showed his bona fides as an actor on that program, because he was playing a character. And once he went out of character, when he jumped over to CBS, he was unmasked as somebody who's, again, great at delivering the narrative. But really, I think his undoing was he wasn't funny.
No,
it really wasn't funny.
I didn't find the show funny, but then, late night stopped being funny probably, when I think it happened before Trump came along, to be honest with you. But, probably in the early 2000s is when it really, remember after 9/11, and was it Saturday Night Live when they, nobody wanted to joke.
Right.
And I think it was Saturday Night Live where someone said, can we be funny again? And the question, and I don't know that they have been funny since then,
Yeah.
Because it probably went on. It probably didn't get so bad right then, but it wasn't a whole lot later, maybe within the next 10 years, where it's like, I don't know, can you be funny? I think when you're dunking on half of your audience, it's hard to be funny.
And that was one of the things that I said in my blog post today that I thought was very interesting, is and I don't know if you've watched any of Greg Gutfeld's program. It's not for everybody.
I have watched Greg Gutfeld since Red Eye, and I loved Red Eye. And the Gutfeld, I think this is its third incarnation, isn't it?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. It's not as funny as it used to be. I don't like it as much as I used to. And I don't know if the format, because, once COVID happened, they kind of all split apart in those chairs. But it had, when it was Red Eye and it was on at like 11 o'clock at night, it was funny, and it was well worth staying up to watch. Now it's just been kind of, it's more commentary than funny. And a lot of the not characters, but the guests, they're not particularly interesting to me. Some of them are, but some of the regulars are not.
The point, and I don't watch it a ton. I've seen it a few times. But what's interesting to me is that I think that because late night writ large, and specifically Colbert, had pigeonholed itself as a left-wing echo chamber, that opened up the opportunity for the folks at Fox to say, well, wait a minute, we've got this Gutfeld thing, and let's move it from a Saturday night program to this 11 o'clock window on the East Coast, and let's do what we can to take on the
Well, he wasn't he winning for
winning by a large margin.
Right.
It's
That's
like
my understanding.
three
Yeah.
million a night. I'm sure they'll lose this week because of all the celebrity guests that come out for the last week of a show. But it's substantially, and I think part of that is Fox realized they've got kind of a built-in audience anyway,
Yeah.
and so they could play to their strengths and not alienate half their audience because most of their audience leans way right,
Right.
and
What
that's
I liked
fine.
about the Red Eye show specifically was that Gutfeld wasn't, and I still don't think he is. He's not a hard right guy. I would put him as a moderate for sure, or even what isn't he libertarian? If I'm not
Yeah, it
mistaken.
falls into that, or
Yeah.
used to be libertarian, and
Right.
yeah, that
So
camp.
he's not he's I like I mean I appreciate his humor for that reason because he'll make jokes about everybody. He doesn't. It's not just the left that he's joking about. Unfortunately, the news or the craziness that that party has become, the progressive side of it, there's a lot of material to joke about. So it is, you can do it that way, but he'll joke on the right as well. And I like that. I want to see both sides get dunked on if you're going to dunk. Um, and I shouldn't say I don't like the show. I don't watch it as much as I used to because when it moved to an earlier hour, it just stopped taking as many risks, I think. But if I'm watching late night, I'm going to watch that as opposed to the other guys. And certainly not Jimmy Kimmel. Like, I don't know how he's on the air at all.
Um, and that's the other piece that I think folks continue to ignore. Was that hagiography of how wonderful Colbert was this whole time, speaking truth to power and all that
Yeah.
sort of crap. But the reality is that this is a show that lost $40 million a year. You cannot sustain that.
Yeah.
Any
Well,
sort of
and he had
product.
a huge staff, right? That was part of the problem.
100 or 200, somewhere between 100 and
Yeah.
200 staff, $100 million a year to put the show on. And so if you remove his salary, which is probably 20 million of that, the rest of it is to produce a television show that could not cost justify to CBS brass its continuance. So hey, I said this a year ago or whenever it was that they made the initial announcement that this is not a political decision. This is not something where Trump can take the football, spike it in the end zone, and do the touchdown dance. No, this is a business decision that CBS made because you cannot, in good conscience, as an executive at one of these large companies, justify blowing $40 million a year. And that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
Total business decision. And so now they're gonna have Byron Allen's Comics Unleashed on every night. And so, and I believe Byron Allen himself may be a billionaire already.
Who is
He will.
Byron Allen? I've never heard of him.
Byron Allen, oh my goodness. So Byron Allen was one of the hosts of Real People back in the day, and he was a young guy back then.
All right, I got to
And
Google this.
yeah, he's kind of a legend because he's made some really smart business decisions. Quasi Merv Griffin, like he's backed the right sort of shows.
Okay, he looks familiar from the
Yeah.
1982 photo.
Yeah, and I think he made a bid, may or may not have been successful a couple years ago, to buy the Weather Channel.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and this, I mean, CBS probably was doing the math and like, well, do we use this hour for more news, which they're still trying to fix their news division, or they're like, Byron Allen's been doing this Comics Unleashed thing for a while. People will watch it. It's not
So
going to
is
get.
it because I can see here that Jimmy Walker was the one who got his start, but he was with David Letterman, but he was on Carson. and then of course Real People. Is this going to be another political type of show?
No, not at all.
No. Okay.
Not at all. So his Comics Unleashed has been on for a while as kind of, depending on what market you're in, it'll be on after all of the Late Show programming. So if you were a fan of Craig Ferguson, after the Ferguson Late Show would be on, I think they would, in Chicago at least, they'd rerun the local news. And then if you're still an insomniac like I was, you're like, oh, I'll just leave it here. And then there you go with Comics Unleashed with Byron Allen. And the idea was, it was kind of it's a little bit like Gutfeld or The Five. It's kind of a round table of comics talking about various things. But it was just, they would, funny, I don't know.
So it's not stand-up necessarily?
No, it's a forum of, so if you've watched The Five on Fox,
yep,
where you've got 5 chairs sitting around, it's the same sort of thing. It might be 4 or 5 chairs, so it's similar to Gutfeld in that regard. And Byron Allen, as the host, would introduce each of the comics, and then he would kind of talk to them about, well, hey, Billy, you've got some ideas about avoiding Dairy Queen because of, and then Billy would be able to tell his Dairy Queen joke, and they'd all laugh at it.
Sure. So it's just a way for them to riff off of each other and have a good time. Okay. Now that sounds like fun, right?
Yeah, and I mean, if your expectations are low, and the costs are low, and it's a proven winner of a producer, why not? I mean, I think it makes more sense than saying, oh, we're going to restart our version of Nightline here on CBS, and we're going to have, whatever news type people jostle for the rights to host that in a news division that can't seem to get its footing in the Barry Weiss regime. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I actually would. When does that start? You know?
I don't know the details. I don't know how long he's been doing the show, and I don't know when they.
I'm going to have to keep an eye out for that, because that sounds interesting anyway, or a little more. You know, what I've ended up doing at night is, if I'm watching TV, right around, I don't know if it's 8 or 9. The Golden Girls is on MeTV, so I watch that. It goes into Carol Burnett, and then it goes into Perry Mason, and that's
a perfect troika.
It's perfect. I'm surprised I wasn't doing it earlier, because it's like, I want to say it's 3 or 4 episodes of the Golden Girls, and which is, now that I think about, a lot of TV every day, but I'm doing stuff on my computer, and it's kind of background noise. And which is, I think, a Gen X thing, right? Because my kids don't watch TV that way. And my parents didn't. They watched TV. They didn't do other stuff. And I do both. But I love the Golden Girls. It's so fun to watch it now, based on everything that's happened in the last 30, 40 years. There was an episode last night with Rue McClanahan. What's her name?
Blanche?
Yes.
Blanche
so
McClanahan?
she's her brother is coming to visit. He's gay, and he's bringing his boyfriend with, and she accepts the boyfriend. She's okay with it. She just doesn't want to go public with it, you know. So she's, you know, it's from the 80s, I think. Yeah. That episode was in the probably late 80s, and it really did kind of. It really was. That's where people were at. It's like, we're okay with it, but, you know, it's still weird, and, you know, all that sort of thing. And so she was just reacting the way I think most people did back then. And of course, it all worked out in the end, and everybody's happy, and they all go and do their thing. There's been, you know, a lot of those episodes that seem like you couldn't put it on today that way, right? She couldn't have any reservations about her brother, and the concern was that people were going to hurt them, or you know what I mean. It wasn't hatred. It was, you know, I have concern for you based on the culture that we're living in, And so I enjoyed for that, just to see kind of the culture through that lens, looking back. And Carol Burnett just never is not funny. It
Yeah,
it's just
that's true.
I
That's
think
true.
it's even better. Harvey Korman and Tim Conway, just watching them try and make each other laugh is probably the best time you could spend every night, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't really watch any regular TV anymore, or new stuff anymore. And what's funny is, so, Perry Mason comes on. That's usually when I go to sleep. And I get up in the next morning and I turn the TV back on because I want to see like the Today Show or something, which I rage watch because I hate it, but it's the habit. And um, and we could talk about that. But Leave It to Beaver's on then when I turn
Oh,
it back
nice.
on, because it's just running through all these old shows. And I will get caught up in Leave It to Beaver 9 times out of 10. So, and now instead of watching the Today Show where it just makes me angry or pissed off, or it's like all they do is promote other NBC shows. It's like, duh, it took me a while to figure it out. And, but I could watch Leave It to Beaver where things
Um,
work out.
so is that the only thing that is rage inducing about the Today Show?
I could go into a lot of, but yes, but it is it is my fault that I am enraged about it. I don't have to watch it. I can turn it off. I hate all of the segments for the most part. And I watch it because I want to see the weather, my local weather. And that's the channel that I watch for the local weather. So I've tried to watch the other morning shows, and I don't know the people on them, so I don't get into it. I do know the people on the Today Show. I miss the older days with, I can't even think who was Anne.
And Curry?
Yeah, I liked her, and she got shafted. And along with what's his face,
Matt Lauer?
Matt Lauer. Now, my understanding is he probably deserved it, but the show was at
Dep-
least interesting when he was on it.
Well,
You know?
see, it depends on who you talk to on the Matt Lauer thing, and I don't want to sound like a Matt Lauer apologist.
Okay.
However, there's a lot of circumstantial stuff
I can't
around.
even remember the allegations at this point. He had an affair, right?
So yeah, that was part of it. But what my understanding, and my friend John Ziegler could really give you more details on this. But my understanding was the timing was such, and NBC's brass was really concerned about Ronan Farrow and all of the investigations that
Oh,
Ronan
that's
Farrow
right.
was doing. And they were fearful that Matt Lauer's behavior would have been perceived really badly if they didn't do something. So, in effect, now there's a one of his alleged dates has written a book, and she's got her side of the story of all this. And again, this is I'm doing hearsay here because I'm trying to piece together stuff that's happened from a few different places. But there was a consensual nature of the behavior. However, underscore, I mean, this was a powerful media personality, and it was a younger producer or writer or someone affiliated with the show that they were having a relationship, and so that was part of the issue. This was all happening. This is kind of Me Too
I was going to say
era.
he got me too. This was when that was all
Yeah,
happening.
2017, if I recall correctly, was when all of this shook down. Um, Now, was Matt Lauer perceived to be a great guy? No, But
No, it came out that he was kind of a dick. I mean, during that, a little ruthless, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Which,
that's
if you okay, so and this is back that, and again, I don't remember all the allegations with him, um, but the fact that he would be a little bit ruthless, a little bit of a dick, a little bit, none of these things would surprise me. That to achieve a level of success such as where he was, and he had quite a lot of clout. You'd almost have to be those things, you know.
yeah.
What is the saying? Nice guys finish last. So, and I'm not suggesting that you go out and be a dick if you want to get ahead, but I do think that that was the excuse when Clinton got busted, was that men of power, that's the way they are, and maybe that's even how they get into power and such like that.
Yeah, and so if you want to draw the parallels, like with the Clinton, and he had this whole machine behind him, and it was in their best interest to protect Clinton because Clinton was the tip of the spear, and they're out of work without him. In Matt Lauer's situation, it's kind of the inverse. And like, well, there's so much damage that could be done to the NBC brand if we don't get out in front of this. So let's get out in front of this and. Is he a sacrificial lamb? Or, I mean, and then there were legal things afterwards about, was he fired for cause, and he's due the remainder of his contract and all of that interesting stuff. He did not benefit from, poor timing timing was not on his side.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he has not spoken of any of this. He hasn't written a book or anything. He probably can't.
He hasn't written a book. He did have an article that came out a couple of years ago. It was maybe an op-ed on an online newspaper or something like that. And it underscores kind of what was going on. This was a consensual relationship that he was in the middle of, and because of NBC's fear of Ronan Farrow and the other news that was coming out at the time, I mean, he was basically saying, I kind of got Me Too'd. So
because it wasn't the woman who Me Too'd him; it was the network fearful of the exposure from Ronan Farrow.
Yes, but I believe that the woman was in contact with Ronan Farrow.
Oh, okay.
So this is gonna break. But boy, it'd be a good thing if you did something about it before it broke.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of empathy for women like that. If she gets herself involved with him and then goes out to someone like Ronan Farrow,
Well, and I mean, we can easily segue into the whole. I don't know if you've been following Diana Rossini and Matt Vrabel.
No idea who those people are.
Okay, you know what? You're probably the blissful ignorance bubble, avoiding sports affairs.
Oh, I think I have heard of this.
Yeah.
Is this? No, is this the one where the guy says that the woman was forcing him to have a relationship?
No.
Okay, that's somebody else.
No.
That's another. Oh, that's a corporation. That's some COO or something.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other.
Yeah.
That's a whole other one, and now the woman. So the one you're talking about is a Morgan Stanley
Yes,
executive.
that's it.
And
Yep.
the individual, I forget his name. It sounds like he made up a whole bunch of charges.
And it sounds like he's like an underling, and I don't know if the woman even denied it ever happening. It sounds like it was very consensual.
Oh, no. She denied it ever happened.
Oh,
She
okay.
denied anything ever happened. She said the guy's making everything up, and it looks like the guy actually is making everything up.
Okay.
A lot of
okay.
the claims were very specious.
I know the claims, and he says he has proof, but he's not producing any of it
He's
for
not. He's
anybody.
not producing the
Yeah,
proof that he does not have. She's now suing him, and or Morgan Stanley is suing him for
right. Well,
defamation.
yeah.
I hope they win
I
because
think
it's
wasn't he hoping to get like the settlement, like get fired, but here's some money to just go away type of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, good luck to him. But the Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel thing, the TLDR version of it is she's a sports reporter. He's the coach of the New England Patriots. They may or may not have been carrying on an affair. Both are currently married. It became a sideshow, and then it was kind of brought out that this Diana Rossini person may have a history of doing stuff like this. Again, I say may have a history of doing stuff like this. I don't want either of us to get in trouble for alleging things. However, she has not done any favors for female sports reporters, the vast majority of whom are upstanding individuals who are good at their jobs, and they get where they are because they're upstanding individuals who are good at their jobs. And so what she has done through her own alleged behavior is try to torpedo the whole category of female sports reporters by allowing folks like herself to be painted just as bimbos who are looking to bimbo their way up.
I'm sure there are people who do that.
There are.
I think probably, I don't know if the casting couch is still a thing, but you hear what's coming out of all those kids networks, right? How awful that was.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about any of these, and I don't even know this one you're talking about, but it's yeah. People do weird things for sex and money,
They do. They do. Yes. Yes.
And women lie. I mean, let's not pretend that they don't. So, as for Matt Lauer, I do think he got Me Too'd. Whether it was earned or not, I can't say because I don't know. I'm not in his head. I don't know what he did. Right. But I do know that women do lie, and when money is involved, or prestige, or status, or any of that, people will tell bigger lies. Not that necessarily happened. I can't speak to any of it. But you mentioned how NBC, was looking to protect their reputation and whatnot. And what's funny to me is that, all the hosts who've left over the years, like Katie Couric and Matt Lauer and, the Ann Curry one, that was so awful what they did to her. They haven't really protected their reputation. They have kind of trashed their reputation after the fact, which is part of the reason I really don't like the show, but I watch it anyway. So,
yeah, I grew up on the Today Show, so I have been a fan, but I was honestly more of a Bryant Gumbel fan growing up than anything.
I started watching it at 9/11. That's when I started watching morning TV. I happened to be getting ready to go somewhere that morning, and it was on, and then it was, you kind of were glued to the TV for those few weeks, months after 9/11 with the ticker and everything, and so it just became a part of my morning habit, and I've stayed with it ever since. I'm having coffee. I'm waiting for the local weather to pop in so I know how to dress because I am in Minnesota. And, but yeah, it's a perfect example to me of you have to be in the in crowd for that particular show. I don't know about the other ones, but it's so very almost incestuous with everybody's got a book and everybody's got, a TV show and it's like there's nothing, if you are on the show, you've made it and you're going to keep producing or you're going to keep they're going to keep handing you stuff. You know what I mean? And Fox does it, right? Everybody on Fox has a book. All the anchors and everything. I mean, everybody does it, and I get it. You've got a system in place, and you want to keep making money. But as somebody who writes books, it's like I'm never going to crack that. You know, I'm never going to be able to crack that into that system. And I think that's part of where some of the rage comes. It's jealousy, I suppose, or envy. And some of the the shopping segments just drive me crazy too. So it's like
Well, I mean, let's come up with a strategy around that, because I think there's a couple things that you can do. One of those is, are you familiar with the concept of buying the bestseller?
yes.
You spend, what is it, $30,000-$40,000 with a firm, and they can
Yeah.
guarantee that you're a bestseller. So you can do that.
Yeah,
That is,
I'm not particularly interested in that, but you know,
but that's one way to begin
right.
to feed the flywheel approach to everything. Another, and I'd encourage you to consider becoming an actual talking head. Being a pundit and going on. So you're going to need to say something outrageous at some
Yeah, see,
point.
I'm not willing to do that either, and that's
Yeah,
kind of, you know,
that's
it
not.
is self-inflicted, right? I
Yeah,
could I
yeah,
could absolutely say ridiculous things to get on there, but I really don't want to do that.
yeah, yeah. So, but it is interesting. And in all seriousness, it is interesting to see, and even in some industries where the book pipeline is really, it's kind of exhausting because
Okay.
everyone is saying the same thing.
I was listening to an interview on the Today Show, and I won't say who it was with, but it was a writer or an author who writes bestsellers, self-help type books. And the book that they've written is the same book that 100 other people have written, right? And they're talking about how this sort of rags to riches story. And and I'm like, I perk up. It's like, oh, I can, boy, if they can make it, maybe I can make it, right? And then I Googled the person, and it's like, no, there's no rags to riches. This person had connection. This person was part of that machine. And
Yeah.
not to say I'm not dunking on this person, and that's not really what I'm saying. But to sit there and portray it as some sort of J.K. Rowling story, and maybe that is mythology too. I don't even know. But it seems to me hers was pretty authentic, where she's on the train every morning writing her stories, and single woman,
Yeah.
divorced mom. I don't even know anymore. But this other person was not, and this other person had in place the people to help boost everything that was going on. And in fact, it was almost manufactured. If you look
Yeah.
at, you know what I mean, and that's the sad truth, And I'm sure the good stuff does bubble up. Obviously, J.K. Rowling did, and there's plenty of authors who have. But the ones that are on NBC or on all these, the ones that are making the rounds, are probably not. There's just it's, I don't know, and I shouldn't. Again, it's envy, jealousy, probably more than anything, but I get tired of seeing it, and I could turn it off. This is all, again, it's all self inflicted. I could easily turn it off and go do something else, but there's some dopamine hit when you're pissed off. So
Yeah. No, I get that. My my morning ritual when I don't go to the gym involves Sky News out of the UK, which I know we've talked about before. But to me, it's like this is a whole other, this is a way to kind of get out of whatever American echo chamber I'm in and find out what's going on elsewhere. I find I find their country fascinating because their political system is rather odd compared to ours. And I'm sure they think ours is rather odd compared to theirs. But the things that bubble up as interesting, and I mean lately it's the the leadership crisis with the Labor Party.
Yeah.
And they spell labor wrong. I'll
I
never get
know.
that. LeBauer doesn't
You know
look right to me.
what kills me? So on my one of my Facebook groups, there's some woman is on. I don't even know who she is, but she's very upset that to learn that the people that she kind of hangs out with, so they are former left people, former Democrats, I guess. So they're still liberal, but they're no longer voting Democrats for a variety of reasons, and at least this woman was, right? So, because she was, against all the men and women's sports and some of the crazier stuff that has been going on. And she learned by some discussion that she was on Facebook that many of the people who were in agreement with her about ending, men and women's sports and, men and women's prisons and things like that, that even though they agreed with her and were actively trying to change legislation and whatnot, they were still voting Democrat. And the British are very much like that as well. So especially on that particular, what is the word? Policy, I guess, or idea. So, and I noticed this a couple of years ago when, the Labor kept winning. And yet they had these crazy progressive ideas similar to what we're dealing with. And I made the comment, I'm like, well, you voted for them, right? And they're like, well, yes, I can't vote. What is the
Conservative or reform?
Yeah. They're like, I can't do that. And you have the same thing with people here. It's like, well, I can't vote for Trump. I can't vote for Republican. It's like, well, then you're voting for these policies. And fine if you are, but it seemed to, like, this woman, it was like it just gobsmacked her. It's like, how can you do that? Like, if you don't believe in this policy, you can't vote for the people who are pushing it, which makes sense to me, right? But yeah, I've found that to be very common in the UK.
Yeah. It's a crazy place. I think maybe they're less. This is my understanding of what's going on. That there is Labor's still in control, but Keir Starmer his leadership is let's say tenuous right now.
I thought he was out.
He's not out. He's not out yet.
Okay.
He's gonna hang on.
Oh.
But he's going to face potential opposition. The guy who wants to be the party leader is not currently a member of parliament. So what they've done is asked some dude in Manchester, I think, to stand down. So they have to do a by-election, which is just like a special election. And so this guy Andy Burnham's his name, he wants to be the next prime minister, but he can't challenge Keir Starmer for leadership of the Labour Party unless he actually holds a seat in Parliament. So he's going to run for this Parliament seat. The problem is that Nigel Farage's Reform Party has all of this momentum and all of the people behind them, so they're growing.
What about Kemi?
Yeah, so she's the leader of the Conservatives.
Okay.
She's the official opposition leader. But the problem is, so step one is this Andy Burnham guy who's going to take on Keir Starmer needs a job. In order to get a job, he has to win this by-election. And Nigel Farage's Reform Party is going to, whoever they're putting up there, they're going to blitz the place because it's a special election, like you have one here. They can spend a lot of money and time up there. So they can have this by-election. So the guy who wants to challenge Keir Starmer may not even win a post to be able to challenge Keir Starmer, which then opens up Wes Streeting, he was the health secretary. He resigned from his job as health secretary so that he could do some sort of other thing to try to challenge Keir Starmer. So I think Starmer thinks he can wait it out and still maintain the support. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think the prediction markets still had 40%. Last I checked, it was like 40% chance that Starmer keeps his job through the end of the year. And then
I can't even begin to keep up with the British, what's going on there. I mean, I'm in Minnesota, where you saw yesterday with all the presser going on, and dude that jumped out of the 4-story window or whatever, broke his foot. They were trying to arrest him, and they've got it all on camera.
I missed
Jumped
that.
off the 4th floor balcony, I think he broke his ankle. They did catch him, but it's craziness, you know?
And this was somebody they were trying to arrest, and
Yeah, he was part of the fraud. I don't know if his was, I think it was daycare fraud. So we've got daycare, autism, the feeding our future, feeding the kids. That was the one that kind of broke it all open.
Is there hospice fraud too? Or
Yes.
Is that just,
Yes.
Okay.
I think the hospice fraud is much bigger in California, but it's the same playbook.
Yeah.
And so that lends it, and let's put on our tinfoil hat. The question is, who's at the top of this? And I don't think it's the Somalis that they're arresting. And even the Amy Bach, who she was sentenced to 50 years yesterday as the ringleader. My gut tells me she is not the ringleader. She's the patsy. I'm sure she was involved, and I have no problem with her getting 50 years. I'm absolutely fine with that. But I do think that there were probably more people involved that they're trying to protect, I think. And I don't know if I don't know if it's walls. I doubt it. But I do think that he probably knew. We know he knew, because whistleblowers have been saying that they've been coming forward for a decade at least, and that they were shut down or they were even threatened. So the question is, who's got that kind of power? And again, I could be wrong. I just don't think it was the Somalis who had that kind of clout, I don't see that. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Was it one of these things where the word spread back home, where it's so easy, get yourself to here, and people like Ilhan Omar will take care of you, and you can get all of these benefits just from being an immigrant here in the U.S. And oh, by the way, once that starts, it feeds into other people.
I hadn't heard that. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the word got out with the open border, right? Our southern border, that, you can come over and you get all these, but they had an app for it. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. But if my understanding is correct about how the Somalis came here, is that they were refugees from the war that was going on there and were brought over by the Lutherans, who were the same people that brought the Hmong here back in the 70s and 80s. So I think the intention was good, to help people who needed to, get out of the country that was under siege or whatever. But the question is, because that's what kills me. So like, you've got these leering centers in the autism, and they're just empty, right? They're not providing the services that they're billing Medicaid for. And so the question is, clearly what they are doing is wrong, right? You know that, I would know that, anybody with half a brain should know that, if you can't bill for something and not provide the service. So did they know that was wrong? I don't know how they wouldn't know. But that seems to be the claim. And then you've got people like, not the whistleblowers, but the people of the whistleblowers were saying, we were threatened with the label of racist if we reported on these people or we checked into what they were doing. And it's like, so what they're saying is that we didn't have the checks and balances in place for these programs, and therefore that's why they were abused. And because, coming from a high trust society, with the Scandinavians and all that, blah, 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 that there just wasn't these checks and balances in place because we trusted our neighbor. And then along came, this group of people who didn't see it that way. That's what they're saying. And therefore they took advantage of the situation. Now, I don't know if I still think somebody directed them to do it, but I could be wrong. So I don't know. But yeah, that seems to be, if you investigate what we're doing, we're going to call you a racist. And it's like, if that is the case, if that's really true, that they refuse to investigate these cases for fear of being called a racist, those people to me are just as complicit,
Yeah.
You can't just not check into something out of fear, of being called something. But that's the world we live in now. We just talked about the Me Too movement. You don't want to be Me Too'd, and that's basically the same thing.
Yeah, and it's weird because you think about some of to bring this full circle, you've got Colbert was asked by Jim Gaffigan a very religious question, and he kind of punted on the answer, and which where I'm going with this is the folks like Colbert are trying to LARP as Catholics, and the folks like James Tallarico in Texas are trying to LARP as religious people that just take the feel-good parts of the Bible and don't do the rest of it. And I think there's a lot to what you're saying about the Minnesota Scandinavian point of view and the very Lutheran point of view, that I could see how the perception of we're a state that does the good things that Jesus talked about, but we're not a state that does those naughty things like discipline for people.
I don't buy that myself, because I've been on the other side of some of this. Like when I was 13, I got busted shoplifting because a friend said it would be easy, and I was a stupid child. But they had no problem doing the hard things with us, it was almost a little mini scared straight, and it worked. I have never considered shoplifting ever since then. And, I noticed something, my kids were in the public school system here, and every year they would ask us to fill out the form for the free lunch. And every year I would say, no, I can pack my own kids' lunch. I can make, that we don't need that. Use the funds for somebody who really does, right? And the response was always, oh, no, everybody can have it. And the school really pushed it. The more people that were on the system, the higher the budget would go, and that whole thing. So it's kind of baked into the system. The same thing goes with autism. And, there was a push for all of this stuff to get your kid diagnosed or get the free lunch. Now we have free lunch for everybody. You don't even have to fill out any forms anymore. But so there's something going on in the state, whether they, I want to believe that they think they're helping, that they really are,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's similar to Oh, on my next door this year, or just this week, somebody made I posted about this, and I just thought it was so funny. Somebody posted a camera shot of somebody at their little free library. And they were basically, it's like, do you know who this person is? Because they're stealing out of the little free library. So they had put dog treats in their little free library. And whoever this woman was taking the dog treats. And they were just horrified. Why would she take all the dog treats and the Tupperware bowl that it was in? It gobsmacks me. It's like, because people do that. That's why we have locks on our doors. That's why we lock our car, because there's always going to be somebody who will take advantage of the goodwill of other people.
Yeah.
And but the people on the next door were just appalled. Like, but it's like, and my comment on there, when I haven't been back to see it, was, so you're upset that somebody took the free stuff that you put out for free to take.
Right.
That the irony is, whew, right over there.
Yeah, I think where I was going with the whole religious element is that if you're Minnesota, think of the brand of the state of Minnesota. You want to be seen as kind of the Democratic, or the DFL brand of, we're good, also we take care of others, and we're not racist, and all of that feeds into the brand that they're trying to continue perpetuating. So of course it's in their best interest to sort of turn a blind eye to certain things until it just gets way too big.
Yeah, but in that process, a lot of people didn't get helped. In that process, a lot of people got hurt. And I think that's where I get really angry about it, is that the lack of foresight of everybody ignoring what was going on, because you're going to run out of money. One of the programs they had to shut down was a housing one to help get homeless off the street, because there's no money left in it. So now the people that were benefiting from these programs are no longer able to. And anybody looking the other way, not even causing the problem or doing the crime, but just looking the other way, should have had enough foresight and enough smarts to think, this is going to cause harm to somebody. And they didn't. And they kind of abdicated their role and their power that they had been given to disperse these funds with. And so that, to me, I think that's criminal, frankly. But I also don't think that we should have the NGOs and all of the, it's like we used to do charity through the church, and now it's just this money funneling system. And I think it's almost too big to manage properly, So one of the things you mentioned, the DFL, and I got to say, one of the things I love about this, even though I hate that Minnesota's in the spotlight all the time, is that everybody knows what DFL is now. And before that, nobody did. So there's that. It's almost like learning the metric system, And I hope that something comes of this, because I don't think Minnesota's the only place. I think it's happening in Michigan and Maine and California for sure.
Ohio as well.
Ohio, okay. I'm sure it's probably everywhere, So if we can get to the bottom of it, that would be fantastic. The other thing I was going to say is Minnesota has a history of corruption. Al Capone and his people used to come here in the summers, and the St. Paul police would, as long as you don't commit any crimes here, we're not going to call you in. So this isn't a new thing. But the scale of it is pretty outrageous, And it's taking away from the people who really do need it. And I think that's the thing that really saddens me the most. And my taxes are paying for it. I that pisses me off too. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Do we have any other topics that we wanted to talk about? I can't remember what the last one was.
Well, it's inching towards gardening season here.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's inching towards gardening season there, but let me tell you what I've got on my patio. I've got 4 pepper plants and some potatoes and 3 tomato plants. I don't have a lot of space. I also have onions that I started at least a month ago, and they're starting to get to the point where they might be done. So,
oh wow,
yeah, the onions are a little surprising.
Are you doing those in a pot or in
Yeah,
a
they're in a
garden,
container.
like
Yeah.
an in-ground garden?
Yeah,
You have just frozen up on me, haven't you?
I'm going to keep talking because
All
it
right,
says
well,
trying to connect. And
Dave has maybe he's coming
Jennifer's
back.
frozen on camera.
There you are. You left me for a little
So,
bit.
but she may be talking now.
He's gone again.
Yeah, I don't know who has the better or worse internet connection here.
Dave,
in
you
suburban
there?
Chicago or her in Minnesota.
Well, then I guess on that note, we will say goodbye, and maybe we'll pick this up with Dave next week. Have a good one. Bye.